On February 18, 2014, customers sat inside a busy hair salon in Gloucester, England. Hairdryers hummed, conversations drifted across the room. Stylists moved between clients as they had countless times before. It was an ordinary Tuesday afternoon. Then, a man walked through the front door. Within minutes, a young woman would be dead. The attack happened in broad daylight, in front of colleagues and customers, at the very place where she should have felt safe. But what makes this case so disturbing isn't simply the brutality of the murder. It's the fact that the victim knew she was in danger. She had warned people. She had spoken to police. She had told colleagues exactly what to do if the man she feared ever walked into that salon. And despite all of that, the worst-case scenario became reality. This is the story of Hollie Gazzard, a vibrant young woman whose life was stolen by a man who refused to accept that their relationship was over. It's also a story about stalking, coercive control, missed warning signs, and the devastating consequences that can follow when obsession turns deadly.
Every case leaves behind a story. Some truths stay buried. Some mysteries refuse to fade. The evidence grows cold, but the questions remain. Every crime leaves a witness.
By every account, Hollie Gazzard was the kind of person people naturally gravitated toward. Friends described her as bubbly, funny, and full of life. Her family remembered her as someone who brought warmth and energy wherever she went. She was close with her parents, Nick and Mandy, and shared a strong bond with her sister, Chloe. Hollie loved working with people. She had a passion for hairdressing and worked hard to build a career in an industry she genuinely enjoyed. After training professionally, she spent time working aboard cruise ships, gaining experience while traveling and seeing parts of the world many people only dream about visiting. When she returned to Gloucester, she began working at Fringe Benefits and La Bella Beauty, a popular salon in the city center. She was talented, ambitious, and only 20 years old. Her future seemed wide open. But behind the scenes, a relationship that had once appeared normal was becoming increasingly unhealthy. At some point in 2013, Hollie began dating a man named Asher Maslin. Maslin was 22 years old and worked as a security guard. Like many abusive relationships, there was no dramatic beginning that immediately signaled danger. At first, things appeared ordinary. But over time, those close to Hollie began noticing changes. Maslin reportedly became possessive and controlling. He struggled with the idea that Hollie had a life beyond him, a career, friends, family members, and independence. What began as jealousy gradually evolved into something darker. One of the most troubling realities of coercive control is that it rarely arrives all at once. Instead, it develops slowly. A controlling partner begins monitoring. Monitoring becomes intimidation. Intimidation becomes fear. And before long, a victim can find themselves trapped in a relationship they no longer recognize. Evidence later revealed that violence had already entered the relationship months before the murder. In July 2013, CCTV operators in Gloucester reportedly witnessed Maslin grabbing Hollie by the throat in a public area. The incident would later become highly significant because it demonstrated that concerns about his behavior existed long before Hollie's death. Yet the relationship continued. Like many victims of abusive relationships, Hollie attempted to navigate an increasingly difficult situation while maintaining normality in the rest of her life. But eventually, she reached a breaking point. By early 2014, she had decided the relationship needed to end. Valentine's Day arrived on February 14, 2014. For most couples, it's a celebration. For Hollie and Maslin, it became the beginning of the end. During a meeting that day, Hollie made it clear that the relationship was over. According to evidence later presented in court, Maslin reacted badly. At one point, he reportedly threw water in her face and told her she needed cold water over your cold heart. The breakup was not something he was prepared to accept. What followed over the next 4 days would reveal just how dangerous the situation had become. After the relationship ended, Maslin began relentlessly pursuing Hollie. He bombarded her with calls and messages. He appeared unable or unwilling to accept that she had made a decision about her own life. The harassment escalated quickly. According to later investigations, Hollie reported that Maslin had stolen her bank card and withdrawn money from her account. More alarming were the threats. She reported that he had threatened to throw acid in her face. He also allegedly threatened members of her family. These were not vague concerns. These were specific allegations made by a frightened young woman who believed she was being targeted by a man whose behavior was becoming increasingly erratic. On February 17th, the day before the murder, Hollie contacted police. The report painted a worrying picture. She described the theft of her bank card. She described the threats. She described the ongoing harassment. The information provided to police suggested a rapidly escalating situation. Investigations conducted after her death would later examine how that report was handled. Those findings would become the subject of significant public scrutiny. Meanwhile, Hollie herself was taking precautions. She understood the danger she was facing. At the salon where she worked, she reportedly told colleagues to contact police immediately if Asher Maslin ever appeared. Think about that for a moment. A 20-year-old woman was so concerned about a former partner that she gave explicit instructions to her coworkers about what to do if he entered her workplace. That single detail reveals how serious the situation had become. She wasn't overreacting. She wasn't imagining things. She was recognizing a threat. And tragically, she was right. The morning of February 18th began like any other workday. Customers booked appointments. Staff prepared for another busy day. Life carried on. But elsewhere, investigators later determined that Maslin had already begun putting a plan into motion. Before heading to the salon, he purchased a kitchen knife. It wasn't an impulsive decision made during an argument. It wasn't a weapon found by chance. He deliberately acquired the knife before traveling to Hollie's workplace. That detail would become one of the strongest indicators of premeditation. At some point that afternoon, Maslin arrived at Fringe Benefits and Labella Beauty. Inside the salon were employees, customers, and witnesses who had no idea they were about to experience one of the most traumatic moments of their lives. When he entered, one colleague reportedly recognized the danger immediately. She knew the instructions Hollie had previously given. She understood why they existed. But events unfolded with terrifying speed. Maslin approached Hollie. Within moments, panic erupted. Witnesses later described scenes of chaos as colleagues and customers attempted to intervene. People tried to stop him. People tried to protect her. But the attack happened so quickly that there was little anyone could do. The entire assault lasted less than 2 minutes. In approximately 1 minute and 52 seconds, Hollie suffered 14 stab wounds. It was a frenzied, devastating attack carried out in front of horrified witnesses. Emergency services were called immediately, but the injuries were catastrophic. Despite efforts to save her, Hollie Gazzard died that day. She was 20 years old. For the people inside the salon, the experience would remain with them forever. An ordinary working day had transformed into a nightmare. After the attack, Maslin fled. He left the salon and attempted to escape. Investigators later discovered that he discarded the knife at a nearby construction site and changed his clothing. But any hope of avoiding responsibility was unrealistic. The attack had taken place in front of multiple witnesses. There were eyewitness accounts. There was physical evidence. There was a clear trail documenting his movements. Police launched an immediate manhunt. As news spread across Gloucester, officers worked through the evening gathering statements, reviewing evidence, and tracing Maslin's whereabouts. The search did not last long. In the early hours of February 19th, less than a day after the murder, Asher Maslin was arrested. The evidence against him was overwhelming. As investigators dug deeper into the case, additional questions began emerging. One of the most important involved the police contact that had occurred before Hollie's death. Following the murder, the Independent Police Complaints Commission launched an investigation into Gloucestershire Constabulary's interactions with Hollie during the days leading up to the attack. The findings were troubling. The investigation identified failures in how information had been handled. It concluded that opportunities had been missed. Among the concerns raised were issues involving attempts to locate Maslin after Hollie reported threats and harassment. The watchdog found shortcomings that led to criticism of the police response. For Hollie's family, those findings were devastating. No investigation could bring her back. But understanding whether more could have been done became an important question. Could intervention have changed the outcome? Could stronger action have prevented what happened inside that salon? Those questions continue to linger. In June 2014, Maslin appeared in court. Rather than forcing a full trial, he pleaded guilty to murder. The admission removed any doubt about responsibility. He had killed Hollie Gazzard. The focus now shifted to sentencing. During proceedings, the court heard details of the relationship, the stalking, the threats, and the planning that preceded the attack. The judge described the murder as exceptionally serious. The fact that Maslin had purchased the knife beforehand and traveled to Hollie's workplace played a major role in assessing the crime. This was not a spontaneous act. It was deliberate. In July 2014, Maslin received a life sentence with a minimum term of 24 years before parole could even be considered. For many observers, the sentence reflected the gravity of what had happened. But for Hollie's loved ones, there could never be true justice. No prison sentence could restore the future that had been stolen. No court ruling could return a daughter, sister, or friend. In the aftermath of the tragedy, Hollie's family faced a choice. They could allow the story to end with grief, or they could try to create something meaningful from unimaginable loss. They chose the second path. Nick Gazzard and his family established the Hollie Gazzard Trust. The organization's mission is simple but powerful: to educate people about stalking, to raise awareness of domestic abuse, to help young people recognize coercive control, and to prevent others from experiencing what Hollie endured. The Trust works with schools, universities, workplaces, and communities across the United Kingdom. Its message is that warning signs matter, threats matter, obsessive behavior matters, and when someone says they are afraid, that fear deserves to be taken seriously. Today, more than a decade after her death, Hollie's name continues to have an impact. Not because of the way she died, but because of the conversations her story continues to inspire. Her case forced people to confront difficult realities about stalking and abusive relationships. It highlighted how quickly danger can escalate after a breakup, and it reminded the public that violence rarely appears without warning. Looking back, one detail remains impossible to forget. Hollie knew she was at risk. She warned people. She contacted police. She instructed coworkers what to do if the man she feared appeared. She recognized the threat long before everyone else did. The tragedy is that she was right. Hollie Gazzard should have had decades ahead of her. She should have continued building her career. She should have had the opportunity to travel, to grow older, and to create the future she envisioned for herself. Instead, her life ended inside the workplace she loved because one man refused to accept a decision that was never his to make. And perhaps that is the most important lesson of all. This case is not simply about a murder. It is about control. It is about obsession. It is about recognizing danger before it reaches a point of no return. Because sometimes the warning signs are there. Sometimes the victim sees them clearly. The question is whether everyone else does too. And for Hollie Gazzard, that answer came too late. Before you go, I'd like to hear your thoughts on this case. Do you think enough was done to protect Hollie before the attack? And do you believe tragedies like this can be prevented when warning signs are reported earlier? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. I read every comment and I'd love to hear your perspective. If you found this documentary informative and would like to see more carefully researched true crime cases like this one, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. It genuinely helps support future investigations and allows me to continue bringing these stories to a wider audience. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next case.